I went to Atlanta Breakfast Club this weekend and I wanted to show you my review, my checklist. Um, so, when I'm reviewing restaurants, I'm not necessarily reviewing the food, but more so the service, the experience, what the employees know or don't know, or how they're going to move. So, I have my own proprietary checklist that I went ahead and put together and made some changes to, just kind of to keep me on track while I am in the restaurant or going through that experience and making sure like I'm able to write things down and to take notes. So section one is going to be the arrival and first impression um, that comes to the restaurant. So exterior, for Atlanta Breakfast Club, the exterior, it looked great. They had a lot of people that were waiting and they were outside. So it like kind of amped up the atmosphere and gave it a little bit of commotion. The signage was very visible. I didn't have trouble finding it from the street. Sometimes when you're arriving somewhere and the GPS says that you're there, but you are looking for it and you just keep looking right past it because you simply can't identify it. There's not signage. The parking was unclear though. So I just found a parking spot in the neighborhood that was parallel, and I didn't see any tow signs and I didn't see any pay to park signs. So I think my car was good there. But it would have been nice to have had some instructions for parking and arrival. I went online ahead, about 15 minutes ahead, and join the wait list. And so in my confirmation for that, that might have been pretty cool to get like some arrival instructions or be like, hey, when you arrive, park here, or this is how our parking is. That would have been cool. My greeting was prompt and friendly. There was a lot of commotion when I got into the doors. So there were a lot of people standing against the door, and I was able to make out where the host stand was. And they did greet me quickly. I wasn't sure who was the host or who was the manager by their um, apparel, but they were both very professional and bubbly. I think I only waited about 65 seconds to get seated. Once they knew who I was, they said, "Okay, we just called you. Stand right here for a moment, and she'll take you back." So as soon as the lady came back, she did motion for me to follow her to bring me to my seat. I don't love that she just called out party of one instead of saying Trisha, which it's just me. So I think, just because it is one person, you could have taken that one more step to be, a little friendly and said, Trisha, I've got your table, come on over, instead of just party of one. That felt a little robotic, like I was just a number. I thought it was strange that even though she was warm and upbeat, she didn't make eye contact with me as she led me to the table. And when she turned around and told me how to pull the receipt up on the QR code, she was smiling, but she didn't make eye contact in that like exchange, which I thought was maybe she was feeling a little pressure or a little bit rushed to get back to the front. But I did notice that table was clean, table was ready, it was completely reset. It wasn't that she brought me over to the table and was like hurrying up to wipe it down, so it was still wet when I sat down. They definitely had planned ahead and were going along with their rotation to do that. So section two is service quality. My server's name was Paul, and I have to say he was outstanding. He mentioned that he has been serving in Atlanta for about 10 years. There were a couple of things that were very obvious to me that he had been able to develop and practice as he's been serving. He was very personable. I got there at 10:15. I was seated right away. And so when he came over, it was only about 10:30 when he came over to introduce himself. He was warm, he was charming, a little more than just, hey, I'm going to be your server, what do you want? He like actually started a conversation, and I felt like I was able to experience his skill in the salesmanship that goes along with being a server. So he did spiel items, which you know me, that's very big. Of course, I can read the menu and pick out what I want, but people come to these restaurants in Atlanta, especially Atlanta Breakfast Club, for the experience. So not only did he spiel me the most popular and the top items that I may have seen in the news or on social media, which is the fried lobster, he also picked another random item on the menu to spiel me. And I thought that was a nice touch to not just tell me the most popular or the favorites, but to walk me through something that I may not have noticed or may not have seen as I was looking at the menu. So he did tell me about the peach cobbler one as well. He said that that one is a favorite, that a lot of people come and they get that. And he explained to me the difference between the Southern breakfast and any of their other items, how that one is the very basic, very straightforward, regular breakfast, that if you're not trying to do any frills, then the Southern breakfast is the one that you want to do that. If you want to try something different, then most other things on the menu are going to be the right choice for that. So how well did the server answer questions about the menu? Very well. He gave me 3 ideas for an alteration on the dish that I was interested in, which was the breakfast tacos. So he described how it comes. He described a variation that he sees often, and then he described the way that he likes it. So again, that personal touch I felt like really made a difference, and I think that actually helped me make the choice that like that's what I was going to get and not feel like, oh man. So one of the suggestions that he made was that he realizes that when people come, they want something savory, which is usually eggs and a meat, but they also don't want to miss out on the something sweet, which is the pancake or the waffles, you know, typical breakfast fare. And so with the breakfast tacos, which is what I chose, he suggested that I do the chicken add-on, which was one of his favorites. But if he said, you know, you can get just a single pancake to go with this if you were trying to decide between the pancake and the breakfast tacos, definitely suggest the breakfast taco. But if you want to get the additional pancake, we can do just one. And I felt like that accommodation was probably very straightforward, just reading it in the menu. But the way that he framed it, it made it a very easy choice for him to upsell me on that and to be able to say like, yes, I'll go ahead and get that. I had no intention of eating a whole pancake, but having like a couple bites of that sweet classic breakfast item, I felt like is something that I always like to have when I'm going out and I'm having something savory. His service was extremely personalized. He confirmed that I knew his name when he came back, so he came and introduced himself, took my drink order, spieled a couple of items, and then when he came back again and circled back, he said, "Hey, I just want to make sure you do know my name. What is it?" And I was able to like call that back. And so I thought that was extremely important. Sometimes we go to restaurants now and we miss out on the opportunity to make a connection with the server that definitely is going to influence how and what we tip, but we don't even get to know the server's name. Like they don't even tell us, or we have to ask. And if you know me, that's not something I love to ask, but I definitely want to know. So I will ask. I feel like it's like points off for me if I have to ask you what your name was and you're my server. He did tell me a little bit about his story, but not all in like one monologue. So I thought that was really a great touch because he was able to sprinkle that in. And so it really felt like as he was serving me in order taking, he was getting to know me and I was just having a conversation, just chatting with someone. And he happened to bring out exactly what I wanted. I mean, I told him, but the way that he framed that conversation, it felt very natural in the conversation of like giving him my order. So our timing of service, I did indicate all of my steps on my ticket time. So we know that I arrived at the restaurant at 10:15. I was able to get parked and get in and get introduced to the server by 10:30. That 30-second or less greet time. So the host brought me to the table. The server was able to swing by and say, "Hello, I'll be right with you," or begin their spiel and like introducing themselves and starting the drink taking order within that 30 seconds, I think makes a huge, huge difference. Even if you're swamped, even if you're going to finish up that before you're ready to do that next step, swinging by and saying, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm going to be right with you." That like resets that internal clock I have as a customer. Um, it was only 3 minutes from getting into the door to the host actually like bringing me to that table. My server greeting was in that first 5 minutes of being seated. So he got to me in that 30 seconds, and then being able to discuss with him and actually start the serving process was in that 5 minutes of me sitting down. So he was able to put my order in by, get this, you guys, 10:38 is when I looked at my watch while he was taking my order. And so I know he stepped away to put that into the system. My food was delivered by 10:50. That was a very smooth and I think a swift ticket time to get me started because of the volume. They were on a wait. They did have full sections for every server. I wasn't able to tell if each server had 3 to 4 or more tables, but it was definitely every table was full. And I think I was the only person that was dining alone. So one, the kitchen not letting my order kind of fall behind or fall between the cracks because, oh, it's just one person. Oh, it's just a party of one. Like they still were prompt with my order. One of the things that I really did like was when the server, Paul, came back around, he made sure that he was already at the table talking with me when the food runner was bringing over the food. So before before the food runner was able to set the food down, Paul was able to see it approaching, and I could tell he was doing that mental checklist of, okay, is this order correct? Does it have all of the parts with it? And so he actually intercepted my plate from the food runner and said, oh, there's missing chicken on this. And then he turned to me and said, I'll be right back. I'm going to make sure your chicken is here. And so it didn't even get to me before he realized that. And I appreciated that extra step of attentiveness. I know that he seemed like he was just focused on me in that moment as his guest, but the way that he was standing, I observed that he was also paying attention to what was happening on his other tables in a very smooth and a very covert way, to be able to like visually collect that information so that he could intercept a problem before it actually was a problem. So I just appreciate that effort so much. He brought it back right away and followed up on the spiel that he gave me. So as he set it down in front of me, I'm looking at it and he's reminding me of what we talked about before. And I'm like ready to dig in. This is exactly what I was looking for, with the detail in the service, which made the service go more smoothly. And I felt like that keeps things going much more quickly, that I'm not waiting in between to be like, oh man, is he going to come back that they brought me my food, but I need somebody to walk back past because the chicken that I asked for isn't on here and I'm not really ready to eat. You know, that can add 5 minutes, 7 minutes to your ticket time and to your experience. And it adds more steps for the servers to have to do or the food runners to have to do. It really slows everything down. And that proactivity, I think, made a difference. It was almost seamless the way that he was serving me. I did notice that another food runner a few moments later was walking my way with a side order of chicken. And so I imagine that that's what the confusion was in the kitchen, is that they made the chicken that I ordered to go with my breakfast tacos on the side, which he was wanting it to be in the taco itself. And so being able to like catch that, I felt like that made a good opportunity, because even though I saw that food runner coming toward me with that plate of chicken, I saw him intercept them and redirect them before they even made it to me. So if I wasn't observing, if I were maybe on a typical restaurant experience, I may not have even noticed that. And that's, I think, what you would want for your guests, to not notice the work that's going on behind the curtains or behind the scenes. So let's see, I want to go to, he was leading the service experience. And so going through each step of service primes and preps the guest for what needs to come next. And it really keeps things rolling. It keeps you from having to wait on them. It keeps them from having to wait on you. And I liked how he took the opportunity to push the exchange forward. So he noticed that I was about halfway through my meal and that there wasn't something else that I was going to order or could possibly order like a dessert or another beverage or another drink. And so he came over to offer and said, "Hey, you might need a box. I'll go ahead and grab that for you." And as he did that, he very discreetly placed the check on the edge of the table. I hate having to ask for the check. That if you've dined with me, you know that that's like, hey, why do I have to ask you to pay you? Because I'm here to pay you. And so I was very pleased that he was able to promptly and discreetly drop the check for me. And it had all of the details and information on there for me to be able to like kind of figure out how it was going to happen without like really making me stop what I was doing, stop eating, and shift my focus. So just to be clear and go over that detail. So I ordered the breakfast tacos, which were delicious. Two feedback points that I had is that the bacon could have been chopped finer, but I did take that as an indication that they just made that bacon for that order and then they sliced it and chopped it to put it on that order. Not that they were pre-making it or it was bacon bits and they were just waiting to put it as garnish on my order, but they made that bacon for that order. I just would have liked it chopped a little bit smaller. And it was fresh, it was hot. I will say that the the tortilla part of the breakfast taco was sweet like a pancake. I believe it was a tortilla that was like kind of dipped like French toast almost. So it was soft, it wasn't crunchy, but it was sweet like a pancake. So I didn't need to order the additional pancake that I had. So in the future, I won't order that because I know that that meal is going to cover both that sweet and savory craving that I have at brunch. But I got to tell you, that pancake was fluffy. It was light. The butter was melting easily on it. Sometimes restaurants will prep their butter and put them in those little ramekins and they'll be frozen. But still, when you come early in the day, they're still cold when you try to spread it onto your pancake. And that was not it. That butter was nice and soft and very easy to spread on my pancake. The syrup bottle was not sticky at all whatsoever. He did bring it in a little bowl to like catch any drips, but either he wiped it off right before or they make it a habit in their systems and processes to make sure that the syrup bottles don't get drippy and sticky as they pass them from customer to customer. And I gotta tell you, I really appreciated that. Let's see. Oh, our beverage. So the beverages come in individual bottles. So I had the Simply Lemonade, and it was just in that little bottle for a single serving. I thought that was clever. I think it may be something that is left over from COVID of, cutting down on the cross-contamination opportunity of touching glasses that people are putting their mouths on, being able to have one less thing in the dish pit to have to clean and manage. So that could have been a choice about their dish process and how quickly they're able to move through dirty dishes and rotate their dish items, or a storage process of how many glass racks are we actually able to store and how many glass racks do we need to be able to serve our customers more smoothly. And eliminating that might have been a strategic decision there. But that means that there are no refills, which I don't finish my drink usually while I'm eating. But I think that that is like a conscious decision when you sit down and thinking of, okay, how many of these am I going to drink, even though it's not an alcoholic beverage. Usually with an alcoholic beverage, we're thinking, oh, okay, I might have 2 or 3 drinks, but when something's refillable, in the US, especially in the South, that's not something that we tend to monitor. It was cold and it was right from the fridge. So I appreciate that it wasn't warm and it didn't feel like it just came out of the packaging in the back room or something. It was in a stylized, I think it was a Coca-Cola illuminated fridge. And I liked that. They had that extra step to make sure that even though it comes in a bottle, it's an elevated choice, not just that, oh, this is simpler for us, so we do that. So let's talk about the restaurant atmosphere. Y'all, it was loud in there. And I know that myself, I'm a little bit sensitive to sounds, but I always want to remember that we're in public settings, especially those transition public settings like a waiting room, doctor's office, restaurant, bar, depending on the type of bar. You want to keep the volume to just below being able to hear and understand the lyrics. So if you and your person at your table are talking to each other, or you're trying to talk to the server or hear the server, neither of you is going to need to raise your voice to be able to hear or speak to each other. So having the music turned down just a little lower, then you can easily understand or overhear the lyrics if there's words in there, is usually a good choice or a better choice. When you have the music up too loud, I think sometimes restaurants are really leaning into that ambiance from the sound of the music, but unfortunately, it makes everybody raise their volume. And so now the internal volume of the restaurant is just going to be higher. It's not necessarily going to be more fun or more interactive, but now we have to concentrate a little bit harder to enjoy our other senses or to focus on what somebody is telling us when we're discussing with the server or with the person that's with us. So I thought that that was a little bit loud. I will say the music outside, there was a DJ outside entertaining the people that were on the wait list, that were standing outside, that were sitting outside. And I feel like that contributed to the waiting experience, that you're getting to just enjoy your time in the sun instead of just waiting in the most boring way possible. And I really appreciated that the restaurant took that touch to have I think it was a drinks food truck and a DJ out there to extend the experience to outside of the restaurant, especially since they don't like have a separate waiting area inside. And then our second to last section is our departure. Before we get to the departure, I do want to point out, and I have some pictures to show you. I did get up and go to the restroom while I was in the middle of my experience. And one of the first things that we always look at when we go somewhere to know if it's an establishment that is meeting the standards that we're expecting or that we like is how clean is the restroom, right? That kind of lets us know how things go. And I thought this restroom was a little bit unique because it was obvious, and you'll see this in the pictures that I took, it was obvious that somebody is checking that restroom. The counters around the sinks were dry. And a lot of times, you wash your hands, and as you are, with wet hands going over to get your paper towel, the drips, get on the counter, or there's a little bit of splashing as you're washing your hands. But the counters were bone dry, but it was apparent that those sinks had been used. The paper towel was full, and there were no splashes or streaks on the mirror, which I thought, oh, great. It's obvious that somebody has come in here and said, like, okay, let me check the bathroom. Unfortunately, that person must have been in a rush or split between their duties, because when I looked into the stalls had not been checked. So the first stall, it looked like there was a clog in the toilet of excess paper. So I don't know, sometimes there are kids who just like pull and pull and pull on the paper, and then you end up with lots of paper in the toilet. I did not see any waste in the toilet, just paper. So I think that might have been a technical thing. And then when I went into the other stall, there was some toilet paper that was like torn off, but like on the ground. And that really isn't a huge deal, but customers just glancing at a bathroom, seeing paper on the ground, it in their mind says, oh, it's dirty. Not that somebody missed the trash can or somebody tore off an extra amount and walked out with what they needed and left the excess there. So it looks like somebody was diligent in checking the front part of the bathroom, but maybe they got called away and they didn't get to actually check the two stalls, which those items were just so minor. Somebody just can flush that other toilet, standing by maybe with a plunger to make sure it doesn't overflow, and then just pick up that excess toilet paper that was torn on the floor and just toss that in the trash. So I was pleased to see that there was effort there, but it does look like somebody got interrupted as they were as they were doing that. And so I do have a picture. I'm going to walk you through the pictures here in a moment. But one of them, I want to say, when I came back from the bathroom, and this I think was just such an Atlanta thing to do. Um, my server had not used my napkin, but had gone and got a new napkin and opened that and placed it over my exposed food, over my plates while I was away from the table. And I have had coworkers do that. I have had somebody at church in the fellowship hall do that just as like a courtesy. Usually I've seen that at like cookouts where there could be flies, going around, or splashes from the pool. But I've not had a server take the moment to do that and to cover my food. Obviously, I wasn't worried about my food being covered when I stepped away, but I thought that even just making that effort, even just thinking about that, was valuable. And I appreciated that when I came back to see that he noticed I was stepped away and he took care even while I was away. So that I thought was a really nice touch. I did take a picture of that. And so I'm going to pull that up in a moment and show you. Our checkout process was very smooth. Like I said, he was very covert about placing the check on the table. And then when I did ask him about it, I said, "Oh, there's a QR code on here. Do I need to pay by the QR code?" And he responded to that with all the different options that I had to pay as a, well, if you feel more comfortable paying directly with me, I'm happy to do that for you. But yeah, sometimes people do scan the barcode and they do it directly from their phone, and they like that too. And again, that positive framing of accentuating my prerogative of how I wanted to pay. Excellent choice to be able to do that. Overall experience, I will say it was obvious to him that I was paying attention and taking notes and understanding and looking at the restaurant. But I feel like if that influenced him to give better service, it definitely showed, because he did like make sure to like hit every single point of that. And I got to talk to him as a fellow restaurant professional, and hearing some of his perspectives and his acknowledgments, I think were valuable for me as a restaurant consultant as well. So I did make another note in the overall experience. So I said, excellent use of food runners, handing off to let the server check and deliver it themselves. He noticed that my chicken was missing and intercepted it before it hit the table. And then I continued to see servers intercept food runners as food runners were bringing things to tables. I did see a couple of food runners come to tables and auction off food. We'll talk about that in another video. Not totally my favorite. But thank you for spending this time with me to talk about Atlanta Breakfast Club. I look forward to visiting them again. And again, I'm Trisha Perkins, restaurant consultant for Atlanta Restaurants, helping you close the gap between your customer experience and your operation systems.